Welcome back to the Rules of Language Learning. My name is Olly Richards, and today's rule, ladies and gentlemen, will quite literally blow your mind. Without exaggeration, today's rule is one of those big shifts you can make in your study practices that will completely change your experience of learning languages. And if blowing your mind sounds like fun, then you should take a second to hit the subscribe button beneath this video, and then I will duly pop back into your feed every week with more utterly mind-blowing language learning tips. Anyway, today's rule is something that I became aware of a number of years ago when I started watching videos from my friend Steve Kaufman, who is a prolific language learner and also very good at explaining the mechanics of language learning in a way that regular people can understand. Now, if you watch Steve's channel, you will notice that he covers a lot of different topics in his videos, but in the end, everything circles back to the same basic piece of advice: listen and read. And the reason that Steve's advice often ends up coming back to listening and reading is that, in his opinion, there is no better activity to learn languages. It's as simple as that. Anyway, at the time, I was learning some pretty hard languages, and listening in particular was a big struggle for me. It was almost like however much time I spent listening, it would never seem to get any easier. It's very, very frustrating. And if you're looking for a guaranteed way to make yourself feel really dumb, then try listening to something really hard in another language. It is a great way to make yourself feel totally and utterly inadequate. Anyway, in an effort to make things a little easier for myself, I started to follow Steve's advice, and I began to hunt for material that came with a transcript so that I could read along at the same time as I was listening. And sure enough, over the next few weeks of reading and listening every day, I began to notice a pretty seismic shift in my listening comprehension. I understood more of what I listened to, which was immensely satisfying. My conversations with people became more fun because I could actually understand more of what the other person was saying, which kind of helps to understand what people are saying there, in the conversation. It's a pro tip. Anyway, I was pretty happy with the way things were going with this new listen and read technique. But what makes this technique so effective? Well, as soon as I started listening with the transcript, there was one thing that I noticed above all right away: that I actually knew a lot more than I thought I did. When I would listen to something with the audio only, there would be lots of stuff that I just wouldn't get, I wouldn't catch. And I assumed that it was because I just didn't know that vocabulary or that grammar or whatever. But when I went back and followed the transcript and I saw the actual words on the page, I would say to myself, oh, so that's what he's saying. I understand that, I know those words. Why didn't I realise that that's what he was saying on the recording? And the reason, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is that listening is really, really hard. Everything's happening very, very fast. But when you can use the transcript to see what's being said right there on the page in front of you, you can take your time and you can close the gap between what you can understand by listening with no support and what you're actually capable of understanding with that support added. It's very, very motivating, and that's precisely why having the transcript is so magical. You'll find that you get better at dealing with the spoken language in general. So over time, you're less and less fazed by people speaking quickly, and you get good at identifying the way that words change in speech. You'll also find that you expand your vocabulary a lot faster because you're far more likely to remember a word that you've heard and seen, because you're getting another part of your brain involved, which just strengthens your memory overall. Anyway, you get the point. Studying with audio material plus the transcript, it really is a wonder drug. And whatever you're listening to, there's no excuse for not reading along with the transcript. Well, actually, there is one excuse, and that is if you don't have the transcript. And to be fair, that is a very, very good excuse, and one that has scuppered my own studies more often than I would care to remember. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is plenty of material out there, more so for some languages than for others. And you might have to spend a bit longer looking for that material, but that is half the fun after all. Alternatively, you could just save yourself a bunch of time and pick up a copy of my Conversations program, which I created specifically to help you get better at understanding native speakers when speaking fast, which they have a really annoying habit of doing, those native speakers. It's very, very inconsiderate. If you've got recommendations for good material that comes with transcripts, please do everyone a massive favour and leave your recommendations in the comments beneath this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, you know it makes sense. And until then, remember, always listen with the transcript. Thanks for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it and you'd like me to continue this series of the rules of language learning, then you can let me know by liking this video. Also, if you'd like to be notified when I upload new videos every week, then you can subscribe to the channel using the big red button below, and the videos will pop right up in your news feed.